If Iran becomes free and we're democratic, then through the democratic process, we can see that like the MEK has no support inside Iran, right? So that would be great for us to let the democratic process just show how pathetically non-existent their support base in Iran is. The problem with these people is right now because their influence doesn't come from the support that they have. Their influence comes from the money that they have and the special interest groups and the lobbying and all of the other connections that they have created with American politicians, especially from Republicans. That all of that will become meaningless once we have the ballot box to demonstrate who has enough political capital to basically exert their influence, right? All of that is going to go away once we actually have the ballot box to demonstrate that. This is, by the way, this is the reason why they're so anti Pahlavi. Because if they were truly for democracy, they would just be like, hey, let's just free Iran. Like, who cares about how bad Pahlavi is, in their opinion at least? Let's just get rid of the Islamic Republic and just let the democratic process show if Pahlavi is really that bad, when they shouldn't be afraid of just freeing Iran and just letting it show that, oh, as they say, Pahlavi has no support. Pahlavi has the highest support among Iranians. But if they truly believe Pahlavi has no support in Iran, then they shouldn't be afraid of just fighting against the Islamic Republic and just let's see what everything stands after based on the people's choice. But the reason why they're so anti Pahlavi is because they know they're not really anti Islamic Republic. They're more anti Pahlavi, other than they want the Islamic Republic to survive because they know that the Iranian people will not choose them. And once the Islamic Republic falls, that will be demonstrated so easily. That's why a lot of these people are not really trying to get rid of the Islamic Republic. When it comes to the leftists, Um, by the way, I said Nora Bars. I think she wants to add to this point, which would be great to hear her as well. When it comes to leftists, we have to be careful what we are talking about when we're talking about leftists, because we're not, as much as we say like death to the leftists, we're talking mostly about the communists and the woke, and we're talking about their ideology, not death to the people, right? Because the Iranians are not against all ideas that are leftists, right? We just had such a bad experience with commies and woke people that we because like for example, some of Muhammad Reza Shah's policies were more left leaning than some of them were left leaning. We're not against everything left. People who self identify as leftists in the Iranian politics, they have been just such a. What I'm trying to say is
You
that
mean the hard left?
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's hard to define. I'm just saying that we need some form of leftism inside our politics in the future. Like, we cannot have a parliament that every single party is right leaning. So even if you're right leaning, yeah, even if you're like a right leaning person, you want some form of a competition for this to become a democratic process. And you like, even like, I think right leaning people would want a good left leaning opposition to, because or else then you're going to just be fighting among each other, and there's also not that much, there's nothing like we want to have a proper left leaning parties, like liberal, patriotic left leaning parties, rather than this commie bullshit and this woke or separatist or anti-Persian racist. You know how you have anti-white racism in America from some leftists, right? We also have anti-Persian problem, right? Inside Iran, anti, like, I mean, we don't even know what like the Persian ethnicity means anymore because it's mostly a language or a culture. But there are people who are like, how you said they call you like a white fascist. So we also have some leftists in Iran who call you like, Persians are fascist. These Persian fascists against the Kurds and the Azeris and the Baluchis. So we basically have our own version of that. That if you're a Persian, you must be a fascist. We have that, like some crazy leftist minority groups who say that. So we don't want any of that fucking bullshit nonsense. We want a proper. left-leaning, liberal, patriotic form of left party. That's what we want. So yeah. Does that answer your question, by the way?
Hi. So I just wanted to make a little comment for the non-Iranian audience when it comes to the MEK. One very simple question that we can ask. It's super simple. Anybody is that's claiming that MEK is going to benefit Iran or whatever. A simple question would be, why does Maryam Rajavi, why has she closed all of her comments all across her social media if she is claiming to be so democratic? Why is she stopping her communication from the Iranian people? She does not want to hear what the Iranian people has to say to her. And if she's claiming to be so democratic, the simplest thing all across her social media, she's posting constantly, paying all of these politicians to post for her, and yet her comment section are closed to public. So that's a very simple question that non-Iranians can ask about the MEK.
Actually, that's a very good point. You could add two more questions to that. Why is she not available for questioning ever by any journalist? She's only available for praising. You know how Princess of Pahlavi is always available to journalists to ask him the most challenging questions and he will answer you? Mariam Rajavi, nobody could challenge her on anything ever. You only would be invited there to get paid and then praise her. One. Two, well, you can't ask Mariam, but you could ask any MEK member if they would accept anybody other than Mariam as the leader after the Islamic Republic falls. If the Iranian people vote anyone else, would they accept that? And then just turn red and probably want to kill you or something, right? Or just try, like, I don't know, insulting Mariam to just see how they react, because they don't see Mariam as their leader. They see Mariam as their god. Like, they genuinely worship that woman and also her husband, which I don't know if he's dead or alive anymore. By the way, ask him this: where is Massud Rajavi? Is he dead? Is he alive? Like Mariam's husband, because that was the main guy. Like, Nara, do we know where he is? Because he's missing. They say he's alive, but we haven't seen him for 20 years.
I have no idea.
Yeah. Nobody knows where he is. So, guys, before Mariam Rajavi was the leader of the MEK, Masoud Rajavi, Mariam Rajavi's husband, was the leader of the MEK. And after the fall of Saddam in 2003, the Islamic Republic attacked Iraq. So when Saddam was falling, the Islamic Republic took advantage of the situation and they went into Iraq and they bombed where the MEK was. And ever since then, we haven't seen Masoud. We haven't seen him. And other people think that he might have died in that attack. But the MEK says he's alive, and they give us audio recordings of him sometimes, but we haven't seen him.
No one saw Nasrallah for like a decade before we killed him.
Nasrallah was coming out and talking about recent events on camera, right? We had video recordings of Nasrallah talking
We just,
about recent events.
didn't show up in person.
Yeah. Yeah, but we
If
know he was alive. But
if it
Masoud, we
wasn't a
have nothing.
huge distraction right now, a campaign of "Where is Masoud" would have been very interesting at this moment. But obviously,
Yeah.
where is
Yeah.
Masoud?
Ask.
Add it to the 100-day plan. Maybe it's like day 101. Once everything is
Yeah.
settled,
Where's
101,
my
boom.
Yes. Where's my suit?
Okay.
Also ask the MEK people why they help Saddam kill Iranians during the Iran-Iraq war. Ask them that, see what they answer. Yeah.
Well, they probably will
Okay.
find some bullshit to answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, next we have Shaul.
I saw Shauna at some point raise her hand as well. Who's
Shaul. Going once. Still here even?
are you still here?
He said skip me.
Okay.
Oh,
If
Shauna.
you'd like, type it in the chat and I can read it for you.
Yes.
So next is myself. I want to talk about the amount of money we send to the Taliban, and maybe Mr. Capella has a little bit to chime in on that. It's a lot. And I'm curious. We know it's not for humanitarian aid, just like we knew the money going to Iran wasn't going to go for humanitarian aid, just like we know that UNRWA money is not going to humanitarian aid. So now that we've got that out of the way, my question is, I know Biden was a huge proponent. Was this happening before him and it just upkicked with him? And also just kind of tell me how you really feel about this.
I mean, I can say that did the United States sending money to the Taliban occur prior to the Biden administration? I haven't seen anything like that. You're not wrong about how you characterize it. The money that went to like the Mullah regime under Obama, even Obama's own Secretary of State at the time, or interim Secretary of State, John Kerry, admitted some of this is going to go to support terrorism and nuclear weapons. Well, then why the hell are we giving it to them? Right?
Do you agree that it's a little more than some?
Oh, it's definitely a significant amount. It's
Yeah.
definitely way more than what they had. With regards to the Taliban, my God. Afghanistan's one of the poorest countries on earth, right? So, I mean, after Biden's reckless disengagement from Afghanistan and how the whole friggin' country rolled up in a couple of days and all the mess that came after that, it wasn't just like they stopped, like the Biden administration stopped in its blunders. Oh, we're going to give money to the Taliban to push like gender equitable teaching for kids or something. I mean, it was crazy. We have a lot of people here who are whores. I just don't know how else to fucking put it. Whores for hostile actors that are willing to be their unregistered or even registered agents of influence to push for hostile actors at the cost of U.S. national interests. See John Kerry when he was an unregistered agent of influence for the Mullah regime. See the people who push for UNRWA's nonsense regarding Gaza. Oh, we have to help the Gazans have sewer. Yeah, I agree. Tragically, within 24 hours, Hamas ripped the friggin' pipes out of the ground and turned them into Qassam rockets. Like, we legit have videos of them doing that.
Yeah.
So, I guess what's my overall short and skinny of that? You're like singing my crying game. I wish it wasn't that way. Again, that also underwrites just how important like all of your efforts are in fighting the battle of the narratives. Efforts like Armin, efforts like Goldie, efforts like Tulsi, efforts like Brigitte Gabriel, efforts like Rosa Leonetti, efforts like the people out of Heritage, because a lot of people don't even know that that's happening.
But
right?
so another point to that is the current administration should very well know that it's happening. Can you comment on what they are doing, what they're not doing enough of? I would also point out that there's a huge lack of outrage that there should be within this country. But I mean, none of us, I think, are confused, and we don't even have to go down that road as to why that's not happening. But we have an administration who certainly loves to make big choices, who loves to make choices that stand him apart to the people on the other side and whom he can't stand and whom he thinks have made a bad choice. Why is it that this one in particular has not made that list?
So, real quickly, I don't know. If I don't know something, I'll tell you that. I will tell you that my gut tells me a big contributing factor is bandwidth limits, right? A lot of shit's going on everywhere. You got all the stuff going on in China. You have China threatening Taiwan. You have the stuff going on in Europe. You have the stuff going on in Iran. You have all the stuff going on inside America, including the crazy stuff about leftists calling ICE Gestapo and Trump is allegedly Hitler and all this other bullshit that all of our adversaries are amplifying. I mean, while this administration has some very capable people in it, Rubio being the most capable, there's only so much Rubio can do. I mean, they have that picture of him, Rubio fighting, realizing he's going to be the next Shah of Iran. Rubio now realizing he's going to be the governor of Greenland. Rubio now that he's going to be the next chief of whatever Indians had their land taken by Billy Irish. I mean, there's just so much people can do, and that's probably a huge part of it. It's also why I think one of the points I made was to pre-bunk a lot of disinformation that's pushed by any number of adversaries for both America and our allies, including the brave Iranians resisting the Mullah regime, because reducing that noise means you free up kind of let's call it executive cycles, kind of like a computer. So I know Armin I very much like that about you, Armin. So they can then focus that on other things like the ones that you're talking about.
Well, personally, I'm thankful that they're spending their time with Iran as opposed to worrying about the Taliban at this point in time. So I'll take that.
So let me actually read what I found. So they're only sending indirect money that gets into the hand of Taliban. So there's no direct money. So $0 that the United States doesn't officially recognize or fund the Taliban. Indirect money, approximately $40 million per week, is flown into Kabul in cash. This is a UN managed money, but the US is the largest contributor. So how it gets to the hand of Taliban, they tax workers' salaries and charge fees to NGOs and control the central bank where the cash is auctioned, allowing them to stabilize their currency and access to US dollars. So the reason why the United States does that is to prevent mass starvation. Over 20 million Afghans, roughly half the population, currently rely on this aid for food and medicine. So the current status of this is that the US government has slashed its direct aid by over 80% since 2025. And there is ongoing legislation called No Tax Dollars for Terrorists Act, aimed at stopping the weekly cash shift entirely. So in 2026, US policy focuses on security and fiscal saving for Americans. So this is thing preventing terrorism, stopping a total state collapse prevents groups like ISIS-K and Al-Qaeda from using a failed state as a safe haven to plot attacks against the US. So as bad as the Taliban is, from an American's perspective, Taliban is a local problem. Taliban never plans to attack the United States. The Taliban is completely local. It's ISIS and Al Qaeda that might want to come and kill Americans, like halfway across the world, kill Americans and Europeans. Taliban just wants Afghanistan and I don't know, half of Pakistan, maybe, right? Like if they could get that.
They don't have
Like
silent cells in the other countries. Sorry that interrupted. No, they don't
No.
do this.
No,
No?
no, Taliban doesn't. Taliban is not involved in that. Taliban is mostly a local thing. That's Al Qaeda, that's ISIS. If Afghanistan becomes a failed state, I mean, to be fair, when you go into Afghanistan, sometimes it's hard to tell, like, are you Taliban or ISIS? Like, sometimes today I'm Taliban, but I used to be ISIS. And if I feel like it, I'm going to be Taliban again. Like, I don't know. Like, you know, 2 years ago I was feeling like Al Qaeda. Now I feel like Taliban. 5 years from now, I might be ISIS. Like, ask me then. I don't know, right? So again, the Taliban itself is not involved in any of this, but sometimes like the is blurry between like people change their mind, right? So for example, ISIS considers Taliban to be ex-Muslims, right? They consider them to be Mortads because they believe in Afghanistan as a country, which is un-Islamic. I mean, the Taliban believes in the nation state model, at least, like they believe in Afghanistan, which is the idea of a caliphate, which the Taliban believes in the man made laws that they have created in Afghanistan, which is shirk in the eyes of Al Qaeda and ISIS, that's shirk. which makes them basically, in the eyes of ISIS, Taliban and me are basically the same category, right? They're basically have left Islam. I know they call them murtads, right? So because they consider them to be un-Islamic. But so ISIS-K, for example, in Afghanistan tries to convince Taliban members to come join ISIS-K to be proper Muslims rather than the Taliban members who are not. This is also this. We have a similar situation, for example, in Gaza. We have groups that are in Gaza that are more ISIS-like, that are anti-Hamas because Hamas believes in election. So Hamas is infidel; they're not Muslim because they had election. If you have election, then you believe in man, human institution rather than God's law. Like you believe in people's opinions, human opinions being mattering in the matter of legislation, which is basically associating partner with something that God could do. Only God could give laws. So Hamas are infidel because they had elections, right? In their opinions of some ISIS like groups inside Gaza. From a US perspective, if the Taliban falls, I mean, we don't want to go back there and basically keep everything together. So if the Taliban falls, what happens is that Afghanistan becomes a failed state. I mean, it is kind of like a failed state right now, and it's going to become a perfect area for ISIS and Al Qaeda to as a base of operations for more attacks against Americans. So as bad as the Taliban is, to them, they're much better than ISIS and Al Qaeda. So stopping a total collapse prevents groups like ISIS-K and Al-Qaeda from using a failed state as a safe haven to plot attacks against the United States. So again, broader and global stability, preventing mass famine stops millions of refugees from destabilizing US allies and global borders. Saving taxpayer dollars. Since 2025, the US has slashed aid to Afghanistan by over 80%, and the law that I mentioned. So the thing is, from an American perspective, you should be asking your government to reduce that to a minimum, only to the point where the Taliban doesn't collapse. Bringing it to zero seems like doesn't make sense as from a American security perspective. The goal is to
I
keep the region stable. Yeah, like bottom line, the goal is to keep the region stable enough to avoid another war, while the financial burden on American tax while ending the financial burden to the American taxpayer.
I saw some faces being made that
Yes, I
I would
said that.
love to hear about. Before I do, my favorite Persian here, sorry, made a comment in the chat that I have to read in my California voice. I'm terror fluid, alhamdulillah. Don't miss terrorist me.
Okay. Okay.
Did you just assume my terror?
Yes. All right. Who's your favorite Persian? Was that Nare?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna ban her.
I'm
But okay,
Armenian
anyways,
though,
let's go to Jeffrey.
but thank
Let's
you.
go to.
True. Okay, my favorite Iranian.
No, I'm just kidding. All right, Jeffrey.
So you're very much correct about the issues surrounding failed states and how failed states can translate human security concerns, food, potable water, shelter, personal security through their positive selection of more autocratic or dictatorial personalities because they have tightened decision cycles and can handle or will apply things to problems very quickly into traditional interstate security concerns. That's very true. As far as and I'm not trying to be a stick in the mud here, it's the idea that somehow the Taliban did not facilitate. It's true that the Taliban did not engage in direct attacks against the United States proper.
Did not say, did not facilitate.
Okay, right. So that's my point, though. They did, however, facilitate those attacks vis-a-vis the
Yep.
Taliban's support in providing sanctuary from 96 to 2001 for Al-Qaeda. You had Taliban insurgency against all my fellow soldiers in Afghanistan for the entire time we were there from 2001 to 21. And it's true.
Yeah.
So I just want to add that caveat, right? You're not wrong about the failed state. You're very much right about that. So the idea is to provide food assistance. That's why Senator Rubio did what he did. He was trying to sit there and square that circle, which is you had during the Biden administration with all the crazy shit he was doing. This money spigot was put out, like just opened up, and it didn't really matter where it went because they didn't really care where it went. It seems like, okay, Senator Rubio, when he became Secretary of State and then the head of USAID, is like, we want to make sure like 90% out of every dollar doesn't even get to the people who need food. It goes to support people's steak dinners in DC. So we're going to make sure that if there's any aid that goes there, we're going to do our best to make sure that it actually gets to the people that need it. Read food, but people who are starving. Tragically, the Taliban maintains control of that area and says, well, if you're going to do that, you have to go through their specific sanctioned institution. Well, they're the institutions they control. And so, they're going to take their fee. That's very true. I just wanted to add the caveat, though. While it's true the Taliban didn't attack, the United States directly, they definitely facilitated that. You're not wrong, though, about the difference in extremity. That's very true. Like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, they very much view people, like even things like the Taliban, as jahiliya or apostasy, right? Because they're not, even though they're batshit crazy, like the Taliban's batshit crazy. I mean, they're very doctrinaire. They're terrorists. They're just like, it's like saying, well, there's a difference between the Wehrmacht and the SS, right? I mean, yeah, they're both enemies. There's something unique about the SS, about how evil they were. So, I mean, you're not wrong about the differences in extremity.
So when it comes to facilitating from the Taliban perspective, by the way, BT, this is a very interesting conversation that you started. But I know we need to get to the other people, so I'm just going to make these last points. So when it comes to facilitating from a Taliban perspective, it's not that we're facilitating a war on the United States, right? Further, because that's not their agenda. From their perspective, these are Muslim, they are our guests, and we will protect them. Like Al Qaeda, they're in Afghanistan. There are our Muslim brothers, and if these infidels want to come asking us to, like, they're our guests, and we're going to be treating our fellow Muslims guests with, we're going to treat them like our Muslim brothers. So that's when they're facilitating them or protecting them and not handing over Al Qaeda to Americans. It's from that perspective. It's not that the Taliban itself was trying to, attack America. Like, it's mostly that, right? I mean, they're anti-American. They love to attack Americans if Americans show up in Afghanistan. They love it. They love killing Americans, right? But they don't have an agenda to create a global caliphate around the world like Al Qaeda or ISIS does, right? Also, when it comes to radicalism, I'm not saying that they're less radical. Their target of their radicalism is different. Like, I have watched so many videos of Taliban doing the most extreme batshit crazy things. So like, I know that they're evil. Like, I watched a Taliban member just so casually put like a plastic bag on this guy that he had in his room, tied as like somebody that he captured in the streets. And he just, like, he had his hands tied, and he grabbed this plastic bag and he just put him, and the guy was begging no, like he was trying to not this happen to him, and he just put the plastic bag around his hand and he just watched him suffocate. And it was like one of the most horrific videos I've ever watched. And once I watched this video, I was like, fuck all of these people. The casual way he went about just putting the plastic bag on the guy's head while he's begging him not to do that, and then just watch the man just suffocate in that plastic bag. It was so these people are absolutely, batshit crazy radicals. So I just think like their eventual goal, like their goal is not to like bring down the White House, like, one day. They don't fantasize about that as much as, an ISIS member or an Al Qaeda member might. They
It's
do. They're very Pashtun focused. You know what I mean? Like, they're Islamic, but they're also ethnically tribal. But go on, BT. When it's
So we will chair this because we have quite a few
Yeah.
others on the
Okay.
5 or so others on the list. But I want to rain check on this, Jeffrey, to get a little more information from you too about kind of how you see the United States and at what point are we going to actually start making the right choices when it comes to Islamic terrorism and terrorist groups within the Middle East. Because what we know for sure is that every single time we happen to screw it up, we get some things right, but we screw a lot up. And I think a lot of that I'm not very educated on it, but from my point of view, it seems like we're just having a really tough time understanding who that enemy is. And we like to prop one person up to help them stop this other person, and then they become the new person who's our problem. When are we going to get this through our head? So I would love to, no crystal ball, but are we so I'd like to table that, but kind of talk to you later about that.
Just a quick response. I understand your frustration, BT, but the situation sometimes is more complicated than just completely be like just leave it and go
Sure.
like that's okay.
Yeah, I'm not claiming that we just wash our hands of the Middle East and hope that Israel and Iran
Yeah.
can take care of
Well,
everything.
Afghanistan, not Middle East.
No, to take care of everything for us, but it very much seems as if we pick somebody who's, least troublesome, and we give them weapons and we give them money, and then they become more troublesome. Well, guess what? They were only not troublesome because they didn't have as much power. And then when we give, so to your point about Afghanistan, they might have a plan.
But America is not giving the Taliban any weapons at all right now. Like that's not what's happening at all.
But we bolstered other people to fight off other enemies, and then left
That was
weapons.
during
So I get what you're
that was
saying.
during Reagan's time. That was during Reagan's times against the Soviets. Yes, that happened a long time ago. But right now they're not.